Okay, I think we'll begin. My name is Dan. The Hoc Committee that was formed almost a year ago. I want to thank you all for coming out this evening, considering the weather. How many of you were here at the last meeting, by show of hands? Okay, good. Last meeting, the most common question was, what are you doing? How much does it cost? We have all those answers for you this evening, fortunately. We have our recommendation we're going to be going to City Council with on March 18th. And so you're going to hear that tonight. I'd ask you to please hold your questions till the end of the meeting. There are cards for those of you that prefer not to speak. Although it's a pretty small group, I think that we can just talk to each other. And I'd like to thank our council person from District 5 being here, Mr. Westboro. Thank you for being here. If you don't know, Steve was part of this committee. He was the alternate on this committee until he went off and got himself elected. So thank you for all of your input, Steve. We appreciate it. We'll start out with introductions and go down the group here and talk about how long we've been in town and why we're doing this. Also city staff as well. So I got involved. I've been in town for, Ed, how long we've been in town? 35 years. And I got involved because I was upset. I have a bunch of trees behind my house, and I called City Hall for over a year. I kept going up the ladder. I called the city manager. I called our city council person. And I was really concerned about safety issues. The trees are falling into my yard. More than anything, fire concerns. And so that's how I kind of got involved. I was told, don't just bitch about it. Go out and do something about it. And when the ad hoc committee volunteer forms came around the application, I chose to get involved. Let's start down here with Philip.
Good evening. My name is Philip Marino. I've lived here for 38 years. I've actually lived here my whole life. Grew up here. My mom and dad are actually sitting in the back. Come on, Ron, sit back there. All right. So I grew up. I went to Decker. I've seen things change. I've always been an outside kind of kid, always running around. I've been up and down all the hills and been to the stores when Thrifties was there. So I've seen a lot of changes that we've had through here. I currently work for a municipality where I do landscape maintenance, oversee all the landscape maintenance contractors. So I have a bit of a background on actually how the areas are supposed to be maintained, what a proper way of how it's supposed to look like. So I've seen them deteriorate, kind of go down over the last 10, 15 years. So my goal would be to try to get it back. The reason why I wanted to join the committee was to help get it back to what it once was and try to get it improved. So that's my motivation with it.
And he's been a true asset to our committee. Thank you.
No problem.
My name is Ron Kobus. I've been in this community for 20 years. My kids went to this school. I didn't have any gray hair when my kids were there. That's how long ago it's been. I love this community, and I'm also part of Clean and Green. So part of the reason I joined is because I love this area, and I want to see it stay and get better. And it was a perfect opportunity, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you all for coming.
My name is George Grajeda. I've been in this city for 33 years, approximately 34 less or more. And I got involved because I knew when Philip Ranch was beautiful. It is nice, very nice right now. But when I was here, it was very beautiful. And I think we can get it back to where it's at. For a long time, we haven't had any increase on our maintenance fees. And this is one thing that our mayor and city council have given us a commission to try to do a study, to bring it to the residents, to see if we can do better. And I think we can do better. We have a right to a very simple solution, and hopefully we can count on the support. Those of you that are here today, all we can ask you is, please bring whatever you learned today, bring it to your neighbors. This is what we've been doing. We talk to our neighbors surrounding our home. Probably that's why they're not here, because we have been talking too much. But hopefully you can bring some of that information to them too. And although they're not here, they will understand where we're coming from, and they will see the benefit of where we try to get us. So hopefully we can count on your support when it times come to make the decision.
Hi there, my name is Brian Mundy. I'm lived in the community, been here in Phillips Ranch for 31 years. So we, as George said, we saw it when we first moved in, what it looked like. It reminded me of communities in Southern California here that we couldn't afford to live in. And it was an opportunity to move into this kind of planned community that looked gorgeous with these green belts and walkways. I'm also a big part of the Pomona social media kind of thing. I am Pomona, Citizens for a Better Pomona, Pomona Community Bulletin Board, Shop Pomona. I'm also a lead person, which really doesn't mean much, on Nextdoor. But some of you have met and talked to online there. And I got involved with this probably almost a year and a half ago at a community meeting we had at Decker School, where as a community, we were all voicing our concerns about the maintenance that was going on our green areas, trees in our backyard to falling trees in the green belt, the dying grass. And I remember during that very heated, passionate conversation, I suggested maybe what we need is a citizens oversight committee, because at the time, I believe the citizens of Phillips Ranch and didn't have a lot of trust in our city in what they were doing with the money we were giving. So out of that was born this ad hoc committee for us to look at and study. And we've spent a year looking deep into the numbers, looking into literally a tour of the area, which is fascinating when you realize, oh, we're responsible for that. Oh, we're supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to be doing that. How big this project was. We also looked into the fact of where the money was going. And like you, like many residents, a lot of us joined this committee with this, what are you guys doing? You're not doing it right. Only to learn and get to a place where it's like, oh, you guys are doing the best you can with what you got. And understanding that. So we're bringing you more information here today. We're bringing you some of the numbers, the things you've really, where the rubber hits the road, this is what you want to know. And that's coming to you today.
Thank you.
Scott Harmon. I've been here about 20 years now. And when my daughter came to Ranch Hills, I actually had hair. So it's a little change. So having been here 20 years, though, over the past few years, I've been thinking to myself, I've been here a long time. I can get back a little. And why not? I mean, I certainly have benefited from living in this great community. So it had been kind of brewing within me a little bit that I'd like to get involved in the community in some form. And so when I crossed paths with this solicitation for somebody to help out with this committee, I thought, well, I'm a CPA, I got some number skills, I can see what I can, contribute to the group. But I didn't know what to expect, actually, to be honest. And so when the group first formed and we first met and we first started meeting, one of the things I was struck by was, this is a really talented group. These guys have lots of skills to bring to the table. And I don't know, I've been humbled and honored to work with them on this project. But like most everybody, having been here for a while, I see the fence railing dropping, down off off of Phillips Ranch Road, and then the ground cover areas, they're not being maintained the way that they used to be. And so, I've watched that slow degradation, and I will be honest, I'm a little bit selfish. I'm concerned about property values. I want my community to look good because I take care of my house. And so, anyway, but those are my motivations for getting involved. And one thing I will say, though, one of the recommendations that has kind of come out of the group is the creation of an oversight committee that will succeed us. And I don't want to steal Dennis's thunder, but the people that are here kind of demonstrate people who are concerned about the community, and I would encourage you guys to get involved, because that's the kind of people, or you are the kind of people that we need to pick up the ball afterwards. Thanks.
Please.
Hi, I'm Shandy Dittman, and I'm a senior management analyst with the City of Pomona. I'm a unit of cargo, and I'm associate director of the City Assessment Consultant Project. My goal is to help back the part of the city project
And the ballot, right?
and the balloting.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm Mark Luba, the city's deputy city manager, here on behalf of the city manager, William Lowe. Michael Slade, the city's parking facility manager in the public.
All right. So,
Yes,
as-
with the microphone? It's actually working, the microphone, it's working.
do we need it?
Oh, maybe.
No, it's off.
Well, let's turn it on.
Do we need the microphone? Can everyone hear us okay?
Only if they're talking, we can't, speakers like voices.
Okay.
They're to speak and talk.
All right, they're done. Unless you have questions. But we'll hand it to you when you're ready for your questions at the very end. All right. So, as everyone's mentioned, we've been formed about a year now, and our goal is to go to City Council with our recommendations we're going to talk about tonight. Ultimately, it has to go to a vote of the public. It has to go to a vote of the homeowners, whatever our recommendations are. Next slide, please. So, why is there a landscape district at all? Well, there were 9 developers, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone here, but there were 9 developers in Phillips Ranch when it was originally thought of. And each of those developers thought that it would be good to have a landscape district. They were responsible for the upkeep of that until such time that all 9 developers built out and left. At that point in time, the formation of the Landscape and Lighting Assessment District happened, and it's gone on ever since then. Why was it formed? Well, I think the landscape here is better than the landscape in the city, and one of the reasons I bought here when I first moved here is how beautiful it was. A great place, the slopes look good, the greenbelt looked great. And so we all bought into the concept when you bought your home here, regardless of whether you bought it brand new or whether you bought it last year, you bought into the fact that you were going to be part of that landscape assessment district. And if you really take a good look at your tax bill, ever since Prop 13 happened many years ago, there's all sorts of assessments that maybe wouldn't have been there years ago, from school district to community college, et cetera. Right now, we're paying about $277 a year. That hasn't been raised in a long, 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 long time.
20 plus years.
20 plus years. So our first thing was, well, why can't the city just fix that? Well, the city can't just fix it. It's up to the landscape district to do it. So why does it have to go to a vote of the public? Well, because there's Proposition 218. Around 1996, Prop 218 happened. And it essentially says if there's any taxation on the people whatsoever, regardless of what it is, it has to go to a vote of the people. So that's where we find ourselves today. And let's take a look at the history of the assessment district. It hasn't been increased since 1995-96 when Prop 218 came into existence. We can simply not raise the rate without voter approval because of Prop 218. What is it? And you can see we've been paying $277 a year. Many of the things that are on your tax bill are much more expensive than $277 a year if you go back and take a look. So what does the assessment district pay for? Let's review all of the things that we get with the assessment district. Next slide. Okay, one thing that's typically overlooked is the lighting part of our district. And what you see up there is a map with all of the lights throughout Phillips Ranch, throughout District 5. So that's typically overlooked. Next slide, please.
I have a question on that.
Okay, can we please hold the questions till the end? Thank you for doing that.
But please write it down so you
Yeah.
can remember. Yeah.
Okay. So a big item that, it's a huge item that we're looking at. We got over 243 acres that we're responsible for. Let's take a look at all of the different areas and how large they are. The fuel modification area is typically trees and behind homes where there's a lot of room behind the homes. There are 85 acres of fuel modification. These areas are significantly overgrown, and it's due to lack of funds to maintain those. That was one of my biggest gripes when I got involved with this. Next. At the last meeting, if some of you were here, and we had the Assistant Fire Chief Lopez, and he discussed the Ready, Set, Go, and it talked about the clearance and what should be a fair clearance. We don't have funds to correct that currently. The Ready, Set, Go information is on the website, and staff went out, got some informal estimates on what it would take to get the open spaces and the fuel modification areas back to a clearance standard. Guess how much that is? Who can fathom a guess? I'll tell you, $750,000. We haven't had any money or the ability to do anything with that. Next, we'll talk about the open space. We have 58 acres of open space. It's very overgrown. In fact, when we went out and did our tours, this group's had better than 50 meetings and many phone calls and subcommittee meetings, et cetera. The first 2 weeks of what we did was went out and looked at all the areas and took walkways down the paths. And we tried to walk into a lot of the open spaces, and we couldn't get in the open spaces. They're significantly overgrown. Some of you may have that either on the side of your house or behind your home as well.
As you see in the slide, what you'd find in these open spaces, which you would all recognize off our roads and the hills and things like that, it's kind of one of two stories. It's either very overgrown and dead, or it's just dirt. And I think all of us had a better expectation than just dirt.
Absolutely. Next is the turf area. You realize that we have over 40 acres of turf? You only need to walk down the greenbelt to see what disrepair that's in over what it used to be. Next, we have the ground cover. It's a slope and ground cover. We have 60 acres of slope and ground cover. Take a look at the slopes down Village Loop as you drive by there every day. How many of you recall how beautiful that used to be? The slopes were just amazing, and I know I certainly do. Irrigation. It's been neglected for years. It's been vandalized, and many of the components of the sprinkler system, irrigation system, have been stolen. There have not been funds to repair that. And Philip, you had some ideas regarding the irrigation.
And yeah, kind of even the slide before where you saw all those slopes where there's no more plant material, this is the reason why. That irrigation it's from the 80s. Irrigation, there's been so many major advancements in it. It's vandalized, everything's cut, so that the lack of irrigation is what really led to a lot of that decline in the plant material.
It was kind of a long, kind of a series of dominoes. There would be a break, things would flood out, they'd turn off the water.
Yeah, instead of making
the repair. And then again, you guys have all heard, it's happening everywhere where people are stealing copper. We've had entire like anti-siphon valve stations cut away and stolen. And again, so they shut the water off. And then all that growth has now just died and it's become an extreme fire hazard.
And not only that, but there have been such advances in that technology.
Yeah.
If we ever get to replanting and the oversight committee, which we plan on, hopefully council will approve and form, we'll have the responsibility to look at zero landscaping and a bunch of different things. So the irrigation is going to look different going forward than it currently does today.
There's a lot more water efficient designs that we can do, looking at drip irrigation, upgrading, and quite a bit of things that should be done.
Next, we have V-ditches also, and you see those probably when you're out on your walks, and they're often filled with debris as noted in the picture that's up on the screen. Now let's talk about trees. Can you believe we have over 12,000 trees within that 240 acres? Right now, we know for sure that there are 336 dead or diseased trees. And currently, we have a current estimate that it's going to take $126,000 to remove those trees. One of the main concerns when we first met of every person on this committee was safety concerns. One fire, think about all the volunteer trees that have grown, but maybe even more important than that, the citizen safety. As you walk through the greenbelt and as we did our tour, there's some diseased trees there that could fall. I don't know if you recall this summer, but in Whittier, a tree had fallen and killed a young girl. That would be our #1 concern going forward, is safety. Other landscape considerations include wood fencing and monuments, walls, decorative railings, signage, rodent control, greenbelt walkways, dogway stations, exercise stations, and other amenities in the greenbelt. You can see that this is a huge, huge project, over 240 acres and over 12,000 trees. Let's compare what we have in Phillips Ranch to the entire city. So we have 240 acres. All of the city parks combined are about 200 acres in the entire city. Now look at the square miles that our city equals. The landscape contract for those parks is about $750,000 annually. Of all the trees throughout the entire city, Phillips Ranch, our district, assessment district, has 1/3 of those trees in the entire city. So now you start to get an idea about the scope of what we've been looking at. It's humongous. Okay, so why wasn't anything done? Seems like, nothing's been done for all these years. Well, someone tried in 2008. Since 1995, 96, we haven't increased that rate. And in 2008, it went out to a vote of the public. Resoundingly, the voters said, no, we don't want to increase. And it was going to go from the time $272 a year was at the time, I believe, to $392 a year. I think that it was a really poor timing to do that. You all recall 2008, the economy was in the tank. We were all saying no to anything and everything, you know, all trying to find a better way to spend our money.
And if I could say, Dennis, there was also absolutely zero effort like this of a citizens or residents committee to try to look into it, or to even try to communicate that out to the residents within the ranch. It was zero. It just, the ballot kind of showed up on your doorstep.
And the challenge there was a lot of people like me, they didn't understand the process. I didn't know anything about Prop 218. I just knew that I was being asked to increase my taxes, and I was angry with the city because I didn't know. But as a consequence of that, that's when we really started to see that distinct degradation in the quality of the green areas. And I brought with me the city report that they had written up as a consequence of the election. I'll just read one sentence to you. In order to meet FY 2008-2009 adopted budget, it will be necessary to make service reductions for prior levels. And then it kind of goes into what specifically they're thinking. And it was just as a consequence, there just wasn't enough money, so something had to give.
So we knew in 2008 that we were in trouble because there had been no increases in the rates. Well, the last 10 years, it's gotten significantly worse. In 2008, there was a staff report. There's a copy of it on the table. I would encourage you to read that staff report because it was a foreshadowing. What the condition we're in today was very predictable. If you look at that, it specifically said that the primary focus of the Phillips Ranch is going to be maintenance service. It's going to be safety. Anticipated reductions in mowing, edging, blowing, routine tree trimming, frequency of fertilizing, frequency of shrub trimming, et cetera, et cetera. We knew that this would happen. City staff was smart and city council at the time was smart and knew that it would happen. Next slide, please. Here's what we're talking about doing. So after we've analyzed the snot out of this thing for a year, we said, what would have happened if we went back to 95, 96 and just took CPI, Consumer Price Index, and grew that $277? What would that make it be? So we analyzed that and found out what that number is. And then we went to work, staff went to work diligently and got estimates on new landscape contract, as well as with new standards, as well as new tree maintenance. And then on the cleanup and irrigation. At the end of the day, the fees, if the fees would go up by CPI, it'd be $488.26 a year. That's $210 more than what you're currently paying. $17 a month. That's 58 cents a day or less than the cost of a Snickers bar, if you look at the way I think of things. Okay, so our recommendation is going to be to go to City Council on the 18th and say that we would like City Council, and it has to be approved by the entire City Council, not just District 5, to go to a vote of the public to raise the fee from $277.81 to $488.26.
And let me just say, I don't know if it was quite clear. Unplanned, but just doing the analysis of CPI, just doing average inflation, rise in cost, it matched with the number we came up with that we needed to maintain. So if we had been doing like CPI adjustments every year, that 218 stopped, we would have been okay.
Absolutely.
We've been right where we are right now.
Right. Okay, so we hired a consultant, the city hired a consultant, and Adina's here. And so what she did then is put this into a budget perspective. And is that up on the screen? So the areas in which we increased our landscape maintenance, tree maintenance, and we're adding a full-time dedicated person. We're recommending that we add a dedicated full-time person that will go out and be in charge of these contractors. We'll talk about the contracts and how we're going to rewrite them in a moment. So one other thing that happened during this process is thanks to our mayor and thanks to Mr. Lustro, there used to be $80,000 in this budget for us to take care of our own parks. Okay, Steve, and I got to say that Brian was pretty loud about this. And Steve went to the city and worked with the city management group. We now have that out. So all of the parks will be, the 2 parks will be maintained by the city as opposed to the district maintaining those. We thought that was fair and equal, and thank you, Steve. Yeah, we're getting $80,000 out of that budget. Very important to us. So here's what our recommendations are. Our recommendations, there were 2 alternatives on here. One is basically do nothing, just grow the existing number by CPI. The second scenario is to go to that $488. So when we go to city council, we're gonna have in the city staff report, and I encourage you to come to the meeting, and I would encourage you to tell all of the city council people that you know to vote yes on this. So we're gonna go and we're gonna ask city council to approve alternate number 2, which is go up $488. We're gonna ask,
248.
pardon me?
2,488.
Up to $488 per year. We're going to ask that the formation of a permanent Phillips Ranch Assessment District Oversight Committee with regular scheduling meetings happen. It would be the same scenario as what happened with us. There would be an application. If you're interested, there's a sign-up sheet over by Denise. Raise your hand. Sign-up sheet over by Denise if you might be interested in getting an application, if city council approves this. And I don't know how many people that'll be. That'll be up to city council. But that group will be responsible for going out and assisting the full-time employee that we have, and going out and taking a look at your particular area, or however you want to divide up the city and say, hey, I saw a sprinkler that was bad. Hey, it looks like the landscape's bad, et cetera, et cetera. And not only that, but work with the city staff to develop a meaningful contract going forward, an agreement with what will probably wind up being, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 companies rather than the 2 that we have, Michael?
Yeah, so probably the one that's doing tree maintenance, and then right now, what we've discussed is having one company that would be doing slope and ground cover and the turf maintenance, and then a separate company doing the open space and fuel modification areas, simply because most landscaping companies are going to be able to do one of those things well and not the other. A lot of them are not going to be equipped to be able to do that whole range of different things. There are tools that are involved with that, different types of work, different expertise among their staff, different levels of staffing. So that was actually, randomly I was talking to the landscaper that maintains our parks and the rest of the city about the fact of this, and I was like curious if they would think about bidding if the rate was changed, because they had previously not bid on it, because they indicated they didn't feel like they could do the work for what the winning bids were likely to be. And they said, would be interested, are you going to be splitting they randomly, without even being told, asked if we were going to be splitting it possibly into different things, because they said they would be interested in doing the slope and ground cover and turf, but they didn't really think they had the equipment to do the open space and fuel modification. So it was interesting to hear that from them unprompted as far as whether they would bid on it.
Thank you, Michael. One thing that we learned early on, we formed a couple different subcommittees. One took a look at the contracts, and the other is for public awareness. The group that took a look at the contracts, we took a look at the 2 existing contracts we had, and we said, wow, there's a whole bunch of things in those contracts that we certainly wouldn't put in a contract. There's no real teeth in the contract to hold the landscape contractor to the fire. And I'll tell you a good reason why that happened. The city had what the city did, every time something went out to bid was they accepted the low bidder. That's the way they did business. Well, we're recommending that we never do that again, that we do a request for qualifications, let the city staff and/or a consultant enter that oversight committee, whoever it is, agree that the people are capable of doing it. We'll look at the equipment they have, the number of people they have, their financial wherewithal, et cetera. And then once they're qualified, then Michael will put out a request for bid. And at the time we get the request for bid, we'll then be able to take the low bid because they'll be pre-qualified to do the work. So we think that's just ultimately really important, and it's going to bring us a much better result than what we currently have today.
And to kind of go on that, it talked about hiring on a independent supervisor to oversee just for Phillips Ranch. That supervisor would help enforce those specifications to make sure those contractors are doing what they should be doing. And that's something that wasn't done before. If you get a supervisor that's there for 40 hours a week, following following up on what they're doing, you have a lot better chance of getting better quality and making sure they're following exactly what's in the specifications.
And there's some great things we could put in the agreement, such as we can request that they put up a performance bond. Does everyone know what that is? So they either have to put up cash or go to a bonding company. And let's just say the contract's $500,000. Perhaps we request half that in a performance bond. Then you put specific performance criteria in the agreement, and if they don't meet that criteria, and reports that we're going to report to them to give back to Michael's group on a weekly, monthly, or daily basis, you can ding them, and you can ding them financially.
Yeah.
You'll have the ability to take money against their non-performance. Also, it's real important that we have default conditions in the agreement, whether they go broke or whether they're just not doing the job, so that the city will have the control to let them go with or without cause. So the oversight committee is going to work closely with Michael's group to do this new contract, but do it properly. We also have a new city attorney group. I happen to know they're very, very good with dealing with contracts with municipalities. So that'll be helpful. Go on to the next slide, please. This is what a sample ballot may look like. This one was from the city of La Habra Heights. It's going to go out to you, and you're going to have a yay or a nay.
3 choices.
Every homeowner is going to get one of these. Every commercial business is going to get one of these as well. So if you're a renter, it's actually the homeowner that gets the deciding vote. And the way this thing works, and Dina can answer any questions we might have, is we'll have a date certain that it comes back to the city, and you simply look at the yeses and the nos, and if the yeses are greater than the nos, it goes forward.
Also, as Dennis pointed out, the businesses, the shops that are up at Rio Rancho off of there, they get a vote as well because they contribute into the fees for the maintenance.
And Dana can answer best the questions about how much do they pay. There's some pretty tiny sums, but I'll just give you an example. There are a couple of different Walmart plots. One of the Walmart plots would pay enough to equal about 20 homes, my recollection is, as an example. So here's the ballot timeline. If City Council on the March 18th, please come to the meeting, says that's a good idea, let's go forward with this. In April, the ballots will be mailed to all of the parcel owners. On June 17th, there'd be a public hearing, and the city engineer's report would have the tally of the votes at that time. If it's a yes, we then send it off to the Los Angeles County tax people, and they'll prepare it for the tax roll beginning January 1st next year. Here's where we really need your help. The city has to stay neutral on this. They can't say this is a great idea. They can't go out and campaign for it in any way, shape, or form. We don't have any money to campaign for it. We can't take money out of the district fund to do that. So we're going to do the very best we can, which may include having block captains and going out similar to when Mr. Lustro was knocking on your door with a group of people saying, here's a very important vote that's going to be coming your way. It's $217 a year. Please vote yes. So Brian is responsible for our public awareness, education, and for the campaign. And anyone that wants to volunteer to assist us in that would be very, very good. We'd appreciate that.
So that side of the table is not allowed to campaign. They're allowed to tell you, yes, there's going to be a vote or a ballot. That's about it. We, on the other hand, are the ones that are going to cheer and yell, "Leave, please, yes, vote for this, do this, yes." So it's just a clear distinction that they are not allowed to, as a city, do any campaigning.
Let's talk about what happens after the vote, after we get the results. So if it's a yes vote, here's option A. We're going to go forward with the new landscape and maintenance assessment district. We're going to send that off to LA County. They're going to put it on your tax roll. We will not see that money until, help me, Dina.
December?
Yeah, it's December of 2019.
2019 is when
2019 or 2020?
December of 2019.
Okay.
We'll see a 6-month bucket of that money. You know, you pay your tax in 6-month increments. So if you're looking for a yes vote, an instant gratification, everything's going to look beautiful and there's going to be flowers all over, that's not going to happen. But there'll be a whole bunch of things in the background that will happen that will ensure that the money will be well spent. And we'll have the Citizens Oversight Committee group. And I got to tell you, in working with staff, Brian mentioned it well the other night, they've been fantastic to work with. We all came in pointing fingers and swearing at them, et cetera, and they've been tremendous to work with. They're receptive to have this oversight committee because it'll be 6 or 8 or 15 other eyes, 16 other eyes that can assist them with what needs to be done. So let's talk about what happens if we vote no. We're in deep trouble. The budget that we have currently, it's about $949,000 a year. If it's a yes, it's going to go up to $1.7 million a year. The $949,000 is woefully inadequate to do all the things we need to do. And the Oversight Committee, and perhaps this committee as a last thing, will work with staff, and we're going to put priorities in terms of safety first. We've got to get that clearance taken care of. We have to get those dead trees taken care of. The beautiful green belt that you see may not be mowed as often, et cetera, and things will continue to go downhill. To that point, I think that I take pride in my home, I take pride in the community, and Ron, I think you had a thought relative to properties.
Yeah, you know, we've talked about safety, we've talked about diseased trees, we've talked about dead brush. One of the other aspects of this effort is that we're all, for the most part, property owners who take pride in how beautiful our area is. We have asked Mr. Fred Van Allen, who's a real estate professional, to talk a little bit about the value of a beautiful, lush, green community versus option B. Fred?
Thank you very much.
Fred, come on up here, please. and
Fred,
so
it's
we
a
have
very
it
big
down.
Snickers bar that you
Yeah.
buy for $17.
You need a microphone, Fred, or?
No, I think I'm fine. Trees are awesome, you guys. I think some people know that my wife and I had a garden on Gary years ago. We were the first certified organic garden center in Southern California. My wife's an award-winning garden designer. We had like 5 mature ancient eucalyptus trees in the backyard, and we planted 50 trees on top of that. Well, it all went up in smoke while we were on vacation once. So driving down Gary back in the day, you drive by my house and see this great, gorgeous forest, which we kind of took for granted. We don't know how awesome trees are until they're gone. And then it's like, oh my, drive by my property on Gary right now, just north of the Baptist church. You'll see a desert where it was once a lush, gorgeous stand of trees. Think about neighborhoods you drive by. Think about desert communities where all the front yards are rocks, right? My parents lived in Sun City. Do what you gotta do out there, but do you get this feeling of beauty and lushness and pleasantness? You kind of don't, you kind of feel sterile. So trees are awesome. George might know this, but studies have shown when buyers of homes pull up to the curb of a house that's for sale, they make the decision to buy that house based on curb appeal and how good it looks. So think in terms of either your individual house or all of Phillips Ranch. Think of all of Phillips Ranch as a house. When somebody drives into Phillips Ranch, how do they feel? And trees are a huge part. I live in Lincoln Park in the Flatlands. We commonly get responses from people saying, I drive down Gary and I look down Lincoln, I look down Jefferson, and all we see are these beautiful trees, and it's so fantastic. And that's one of the reasons I moved there 20 years ago from Orange County, was because of that. So let me just tell you a little some of the benefits of trees. First of all, there's some they reduce just some of the health type benefits. Actually, my wife wanted to be here. She's my real estate assistant. She's also a hippie doctor. She's a certified horticultural therapist. It doesn't mean she teaches people to smoke pot all day long. She teaches people how to garden and how to get therapy in gardening. But trees reduce asthma, hypertension, obesity, and utility costs. I'm one of the few green certified agents in the United States. Green. I'm a little bit schooled in what green means when it comes to selling a property. And part of the greenness of a property is trees, because it helps reduce utility costs. And the state of California likes that too, because they're trying to get the state to reduce utility costs. So that's a benefit right there. A savings to you, a homeowner, is reduced utility costs. Now, when it increases pollutant absorption. It increases photosynthesis for you biology buffs. And of course, birds and bees and shade are all those wonderful byproducts. Trees also, a tree, I'm not gonna quote where these stats come from, but a tree increases home value by an average of $7,000, a tree. Another study says home values can be increased with yard trees or even street trees by up to 7%. Your home value, street trees or yard trees. And good tree cover or very, very mature tree cover can increase values from 6% to 15%. Trees are hugely, hugely valuable from a standpoint of health and from a standpoint of value in your neighborhood. So I'm a big tree fan. I'm kind of from the school of thought, what Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. It seems like down in the flatlands, we're losing trees because of beetle and because of drought, right? And everyone on next door, people are saying, well, what's the city gonna do? I'm the kind of guy who goes, what am I gonna do? What am I going to do about it? I don't care what the city's going to do, except I need to make sure we're planting the right trees and doing things legally. But it's like, I want to plant trees, and trees are not expensive. I mean, a tree like that takes probably $30. And of course, the bigger you want your tree to be, the more costly it is. But plant trees, plant fruit trees on your own time if it's within the city scope here. So trees offer nothing but good for your house and for the neighborhood.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, this committee is you. We're part of you. I think we've done our level best to bring a good recommendation to City Council. Now it's really up to the voters. We need your help in getting the word out. I wish we had 400 people here this evening. We don't, unfortunately. And I want to do everything that we can in our power to get the word out. We have to do it before the ballot drops. If we don't do it before the ballot drops, someone's going to get that in the mail, not know anything about it, and go, no, I don't want an increase. So for the good of Phillips Ranch and our property values and all that we take pride in our homes, I would encourage you to get the word out as best you can. And with that, we'll do our very best to answer any questions you might have. Yes, please.
If the ballot does go through, is there a percentage of residents that have to vote yes for it to move forward?
Adina?
So this is a protest ballot proceeding. So it actually is a weighted ballot based on the dollar value of the assessment. And so all of the residential properties within Phillips Ranch are being proposed to have the same weighted value, but the commercial property owners will have a higher weight because they're also going to have a higher portion to pay. So that's why they were saying that there's the 20 homes that have to outweigh whatever Walmart vote. But it's also a return ballot. So we only count the ballots that are returned, and the no's have to exceed the yeses by one vote.
Simple majority.
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so there's a lot of homes that are rented, and you said that there was going to be no doubt to the official owner, right? So my question is, I also know that a lot of the owners don't actually file the license permit with the city. So when you guys do the mailing, I'm going to assume the purpose of this question is that you mail it out to the residents here in Phillips Ranch, but that person who live here, do you guys, is there a way to find out that address so that, they have the voting right as well?
Go ahead, Adina.
Yeah, all of the ballots are mailed to the owners on the county secured roll. So from the title documents and whatever current documents where the tax bills go, and where it's out.
Can I speak to that? We looked into it because there were members of the committee who were concerned about that as well, the percentage of renters. And I think we were surprised. We were able to look in it. It was much lower than most of us would assume. It became kind of that's not really we're not going to perceive that as being a really big issue, because the number of renters in Phillips Ranch who are responsible for paying the assessment was really much lower. Somebody remembers, we had a number at some point, I don't remember, but it came back shockingly lower than we expected. So yes, it's going to go to owners, and that makes some sense. And the owners are the people who hopefully have a vested value in that home and wanting to see that that the value of that home, their investment continues to rise. So I hope that they perceive that value as opposed to, well, I don't care, because that's affecting their investment as well.
I think they'll pass on the $17 a month. You know, if it were a property management group, they would simply take that and pass it on to the renter. My best guess. Please, go ahead.
The condominium complex, I don't know what's the state of that, but what I understand being leased, do they have a bigger weight in the vote as well?
Dina?
I believe those are still individual owners per unit, and so they would each get the same.
The new complex on the corner, that's.
Dina, there's a new complex that looked like it was going to be for sale, and now it's going to be for lease.
Yes.
You're talking Rio Rancho
So
and Phillips Ranch Road.
The owner of that complex.
Yes, I'm trying to remember how many parcels there were, but I believe they,
How does
I
it,
would have to, yeah.
how does it generally work?
But the owner of the complex would pay for those that are not leased out yet. So we'd have a vote on the ones that are not
Yeah,
leased out
it's
yet.
property owner, so they could potentially, yes, have a higher weighting if that's, if they end up being a single owner, yeah.
And I believe correctly, that it's only recently that any of us have come to find out that that's turned into kind of a lease or rent scenario. Prior to that, it was for sale to buy. So, yeah, that's new to us too, and we're not sure how that applies yet.
Steve, when they did their permitting process, don't they have to say whether it's going to be for lease or for sale?
When the project was originally approved by the city, it was represented to the city that it was going to be a for sale project. There's nothing in the conditions of approval of that particular project that the city can legally hold over their head to require it to be a for sale project. So they have, and this has just happened in the last few weeks, so it's kind of a moving target right now, but what the owner has decided to do, and this is based on the market, it's based on the economy right now. They've chosen to lease out the units. I had a conversation with the Development Services Director about what my concerns are on that. We can't stop them from doing that, but we've chatted and I've passed along some suggestions that I thought might be helpful to ensure that if they move forward with leasing, that the property is going to be well maintained and it's not going to be a detriment to the rest of the community.
Thank you for that information. Any other questions we can answer?
Yeah, so the
Please.
condo owners, the assessment, the proposed assessment, would be the same amount for condo owners?
Yes. It is currently one.
If God forbid this does not pass, would you consider doing something alternate or in addition to what we currently have? For instance, like adopt a slope, you know? Get our homeowners, you know, involved some way. I mean, I saw those broken pipes. Oh, adopt a slope, replace those pipes, whatever.
Does that mean you're voting yes?
Absolutely, I voted yes the first time.
I think, I think we're gonna have to take a deep breath. If it's voted down, take a deep breath and take a look at the little money we have and determine what we can do, what we can best do going forward to maintain property values and have a beautiful, Phillips Ranch.
But I think it's gonna take that kind of creative thinking, to move forward. Again, if we leave the numbers where they're at currently today, again, we're going to continue to see with the rise of inflation and everything, we're going to see poor and less service. And we know we have neglect. Again, we came into this just as upset as you guys were about things going on or quite frankly, not going on. And we did we were tapered back in that frustration when we kind of understood the situation that the city and our assessment, our district is in. And again, safety is going to be a big concern. And there's homes that, I don't know if you understand the terminology. We've learned terminology I never thought I would learn, like a donor tree. You know, these are trees that were not planted here, but through birds and seeds and droppings, there's, you know, forestry has grown much, much more than it originally was intended. Some of these areas haven't been touched in 20 years. We're currently on, I don't even know what the cycle is for trimming and maintenance, you know, just topping and. 17
years, Mike? Longer? Grid trimming?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a grid trimming, it's all ground reduction.
Yeah.
We're going to be recommended every 4.5 years.
So that's 4.5 on a cycle. So 1 year they'll do one part, next year, and they'll get back to that area again within 4 years.
You know, and one argument you could look at when you're talking to your neighbors is, look at history. You know, we tried in 2008 to raise more money to do exactly what we're trying to do here in 2019. So look at it in terms of, we've lost effectively 12 years. We've got a lot of catching up to do. But when you're talking to your neighbors, you know, we've tried this, and nobody likes to pay more money.
No.
Of course not. I mean, you know, we went into this thinking, you know, who wants to pay more money? Well, we've been together a year, and we've looked at this issue 6 days, 6 ways to Sunday. And share with your neighbors. 2008, we tried. We have another opportunity to try now.
Yes, please.
I thought that you were not included in the economy use along by Winco. I thought they were.
No, they are, I believe. Condos on Rio Rancho.
Rio Rancho and,
The ones on the other side of the freeway, the 60, that is actually still part of Phillips Ranch. They are not part of
So
the
not the
assessment.
individual people that are living there, but the owner of the complex has a weighted vote for that complex.
There's like 3,300 homes, including the condominiums.
Yes.
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 In the assessment district. Because there's parts of Phillips Ranch or even District 5, you know, that are different outside of this area. And it has a lot to do with the looking at who receives any, in a sense, you or I, do we receive some benefit in the fact that we got a green park or a green belt, walkways and you know, nice amenities like that? That some people are outside of those areas that they don't, you know, as an analysis, don't receive any benefit from that, and as such, they weren't part of the assessment. I also want to be clear, the assessment was there from the beginning of Phillips Ranch, from the beginning of their being, but the developers in the beginning took care of that. There were 6 developers. And developers had in the contract, after 75% occupancy, they would step out. And that's when there was this creation of this volunteer homeowners association. But at no point, never, that association received any money or were responsible for collecting any money. That's when the assessment district was created, and that went through the city. But that body never was involved with any money or the maintenance of anything in the community.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
I've been in the ranch for a long time, and I really like the ranch. Ironically, I think this low decline in the landscape almost argues against your proposal. In other words, why would we need to basically double and do a whole lot of things immediately? It really seems that it should be incremental. The second thing is to give the city of Pomona any kind of increasing assessment is not a good deal. Government just. And the last thing I really have is my question. For the school bond, it needed 2/3 plus 1. Why does this only need a majority?
So these are, there's a lot of different types of taxes and assessments under California law. A 1972 Act special benefit assessment has its own requirements in terms of tying the benefit received from the improvements being maintained or constructed and the properties receiving that assessment. And so because of that added responsibility, there's a simple majority. Most taxes are going to be more general in nature, and they don't necessarily have to prove that benefit to the properties involved, and so those have a higher voting threshold, and that's just the difference between taxes and assessments in California.
I'd like to respond a little to that. I believe you're justified in your skepticism of handing more money to our city and the government. There's not been a really great track record in the past. I do know that we're looking at new leadership in our city, new city council members sitting right here in this meeting. That gives me new hope of the integrity and transparency of our city. I've worked a year with staff who I've seen firsthand how committed they are to the success of this operation. We've also, what was really important, was that we establish a citizens oversight committee. We have a liaison, we have a voice from this community that directly can affect and has impact and input into what is going on in regards to the maintenance, care, safety, and beautification of our neighborhood.
I'd like to add to that as well. So it's not giving the money to the city. They're simply the caretaker who pays the bill.
That's true.
It's giving money to ourselves. We are the district. You are one member, one 332nd member of the district. It's you. It's us. The city doesn't get that money. It doesn't go into general fund. It's earmarked specifically for the landscape district. Yes.
So that employee is an employee of the assessment district?
Say again, please.
You guys are proposing a full-time management. When I read the documentation, it says city employee.
Yes, it'll be a city employee. Along with, there's some other monies. It's a 5% of a clerk, and someone needs to pay the bills, and there are a bunch of different people within the city that will work for the district and be paid a proportionate amount from the funds that we collect.
Because we have to pay somebody to do that stuff. For instance, somebody in the finance department every month has to write the checks, has to reconcile the cash account. So somebody has to do that. Now, it's convenient because we have various funds within the city, and then we have the general fund to have an employee do that for all of these funds. But his time or her time gets allocated to each of these because somebody has to pay for it. But as Dennis was saying, assessment districts are separate and distinct funds from the general fund, and they can't be transferred over and borrowed. They just can't. We have an annual audit that an accounting firm goes out every year, and they'll look at that. They look and they make sure that the cities make sure that those funds are not being, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul kind of a thing. Anyway, but it just can't. It cannot.
And the reality is that there have been several instances where the city's general fund has assisted the district because we didn't have money to do certain things.
You'd be surprised how much money they've given us.
Yeah, before we get to that question, for example, originally we were paying for those parks. Every year we were paying for the parks. And then after Prop 218 passed and then the funds started drying up, the city said, okay, we've got a situation here. They're running out of money. Let's take the parks back temporarily. And it was only because of Steve and Brian's efforts that we convinced the city to say, you know what, look, you took them back. The general public, the city at large gets to enjoy those. Why can't our parks be treated like every other park in the city of Pomona? And they agreed. But in the beginning, we paid for that. So I'm sorry, you had a question in the back.
I was waiting to hear the word audit, and you said the word they. Who's they? Did you guys check out the audit after the city does their audit? I want to make sure.
No. Okay, yeah. So let me clarify.
Make sure that somebody that's on our behalf from Phil Trans is checking the audit.
Well, so here's the way it works for all municipalities. They have to engage an independent auditing firm. In our case, we use Lungersall, whatever, they're down on Bray Boulevard. And I know those guys. And one of their specialties is municipalities. But they're independent. And so the city has to pay them to come out. And they don't test every transaction because that's not economically feasible. But what they do is they come out and they'll say, okay, let me assess the internal, what they call the internal control environment. I'm going to see if the city of Pomona has controls in place that we can trust that the transactions that go through the city are being handled properly. And one of those things are they using proper fund accounting? Are they putting the funds received and dispersed into the right funds? And so they will conduct this audit, and then they'll render an opinion. So every year the city will go through this process of a financial statement audit, and then this independent accounting firm will render an opinion. So that's the third party kind of looking at it. Now, nobody in this group, it was kind of beyond the scope of us to audit the auditors or audit, kind of follow up on that. But
I'm not saying I'm good.
Alicia, I mean, we will have, I mean, that's why what was important to us is this recommendation of a Citizens Oversight Committee. I mean, any one of you have the possibility and the ability to be part of that oversight committee who can say, we'd like to take a look at the audit. Where, once again, that's more say-so, more direct input than we have ever had before. When things aren't being done right, that oversight committee will be the people who can scream loudest to the right people, and again, even publicly, put it out that, hey, listen, this isn't being done right. Listen, we got maintenance crews. I see these guys sleeping in their truck half the day. Hey, look, this tree has fallen down and it's been there for 3 weeks. There will be where we currently don't have that kind of bridge relationship and direct input into the people that are directly responsible for that. And I mean, this could be a call that goes into Michael or someone who works for Michael, saying there's a problem. And he could be directly on the phone with the contractor saying, hey guys, I want you out there now. Get that tree up and out of there. And we could have that kind of focus. So again, any one of you, it's going to be residents who pay the tax, residents who live here in the community, who will be part of that oversight.
And I'll just piggyback onto that. If you want to see the audit reports for every year, they get put up on the city website.
That's true. They are public documents.
They're public documents, and you can read them. It's dry reading, but you can read them.
Yes.
I was just wondering, will the slides shown and the commentary and film, could that be on the website?
We are crossing our fingers that I've done everything correctly to get the video and audio, and yes, they'll be made publicly available to everybody. There'll be links. Just stream and watch it, yeah. Right. As well as, I think we certainly can make this presentation available as well.
And we're happy to make smaller presentations if you've got 20 people who want to go meet in a park or at Denny's or whatever. Personally, I'll be happy to come and talk.
We want to try doing, up until that point, again, we turn into campaign mode, and we want to have I'm going to be this weekend, I'll be in the Greenbelt over, close to George's place there. There's a little picnic bench area kind of thing. I'll be there for 2 hours on Saturday and maybe 2 hours on Sunday. Please come on by if you have any questions.
Sure. And then maybe just a follow-up to the gentleman from the city. With this oversight committee, I thought of the group, we're thinking of this and putting it together. Should there be a dispute with, say, the way things are being run by the contractor and his contractor? And who makes the final decision? The oversight committee or the people?
Yeah, everything ultimately follows up to council.
So the input from the oversight committee will be provided to the council and the Pomona staff report, just like any other recommendation, and say that they feel as though the contractor is underperforming the situation, and we recommend that you either revoke the contract, or we recommend that you put a claim on the performance bond to get this work done by another contractor to ensure that the standards are being met. So there are certain mechanisms in place to bring grievances like that.
And the other thing, thank you, it's very important. The other thing I was wondering about was in terms of the oversight committee, as it works with you folks, how accessible would you be to meetings and timeframes for the oversight committee to meet? You're basically city workers. Other people on the oversight would be working in other areas. So how would those meetings take place?
When they indicated that they were creating a fully funded position, that position would be dedicated to tending to this assessment district. The city is not drawing that employee off of working in parks on the other side of town or flat lands, as Mr. Van Helmen indicated. That 100% of that salary is dedicated in the district and subject to audit. So 100% of the work is dedicated to being your liaison and interacting with your experiences with the contract.
But I think the oversight committee, once they meet, they'll form how often they want to meet with city. And I would say that they would meet probably bi-monthly or quarterly with the public works director, as well as Michael, and just sit around and talk about, okay, well, we sent in these 9 reports, what have you done, et cetera, et cetera. So, and there'll be liaisons with the city staff.
You know, and the difference is, like you said, 100% of the salary is going to go to the individual, but 100% of their time as well. And this is a luxury that we haven't had in the past. You know, you meet with city staff, and Mike does a bang-up job, but he's only one person. We have somebody who's an email, a text mail, a cell phone call away in our neighbor, one of our neighbors, who we can reach out to and say, hey, this tree's been down for a month, it's crossing the street, whatever the issue may be. So that's the real benefit, and the funds are not going to be commingled with the city as already been mentioned.
And the lady that's sitting right over here, her name's Denise. She takes off. She fields all the calls when a resident or commercial business calls in. She takes them, and I can tell you that she's timely in getting.
You guys have probably called her and you don't know. And I can only express with my experience this past year. And again, I came in somewhat cynical of everything that had been taking place. And I have been knocked over by how willing the city and city staff has been wanting to work with us, make this successful, being very proactive. Michael also started pulling pieces of the contract apart, taking it away from our current contractor to get someone to start doing some, it was thinning of the shrubs and stuff that we had debris and trees and fire abatement issues. And I mean, already bringing to our attention, you know, someone you hired to mow and blow may not be the same people that knows how to trim and clear out the brush and the trees and the fire abatement. That really takes a different expertise. And of course, we're all like, that makes sense, you know, but he already started doing that for us even before this has gone into. So my experience is you're going to find a very cooperative, a very willing to work with us city staff. I'm going to go out on a limb here. We all know we have a council representative who represents us, who talks to us, who actually puts stuff out in email, who lets us know what is happening, engages us. So I'm very optimistic on how successful this can be. And I'm also very optimistic that anyone who gets involved with something like the Oversight Committee will soon get those same feelings I've learned a month or two down the road going, hey, they're really working with us. They're trying to help get this taken care of just like we want it done.
Excuse me, you have a comment, lady? Did you have your hand up? You want to make a comment?
So if I were to say, I don't like the color you used in entrance, can you change it? Is it just like that can happen, or is there a process? How does it work?
Well, think of it. I mean, you're one individual. Maybe you want it to be yellow.
I say, do it.
Yeah, I imagine there'll be a bit of a process, and obviously, as my experience, some of us who are louder tend to get our way a little bit more often in that case. But I mean, that's a perfect example. You talk about our entryway and those wooden rail fences. I mean, that's the first impression somebody gets when either they're coming to look to buy a home or they're coming to our neighborhood. It's all falling apart.
Councilmember Lustro?
I was just saying, I didn't hear the question, the original question.
Just like our entrance, the lighting, like
Oof, yeah.
you see one yellow, you see one bright.
Oh,
Nothing matches.
I've already approached the public works director about going back to our original decorative globe lights to replace what's been put out there. I despise those just about more than anything.
LEDs, I trust?
They're almost blinding, really, as opposed to, yeah.
They're not appropriate for our community.
Thank you.
I like to make a comment. I'd like to hear the gentleman first, and I will make a comment. Absolutely.
I have a question that might make you look foolish, but I've been the auditor under Ray Davis and a variety of other people. And one of the things I can't figure out about this assessment district is the beginning balance. When I've had to do public accounting and say that it's correct, down here at the bottom of the year, it's a single category thing, $500. The next year, $500 BF brought forward or some such thing. And then you can just add straight through. And I've seen this assessment district, I can't figure that out, and I've even tried to juggle it a little bit. So if we're going to be able to audit, and we can't even audit our own preliminary, we need some improvement, like maybe move those balances from pending, copy them at the beginning.
I may be able to help you with that, and Adina could probably help more, but we get the money from the county in 6-month buckets. So it may look like you have a whole bunch of reserves sitting there, but you really don't. You whittle that down, and then you get another 6 months. Adina?
So I think this is where our firm actually does not do the annual administration. So I'm not sure if you're referring to maybe the engineering reports from your number here or some other document. But one of the issues just in general with the administration process for these types of districts is we're preparing the reports long before the fiscal year is ended. And so a lot of the time, our reports will reflect an estimated ending balance that really does not reflect 6 months plus of actual.
I'm not used.
So
things called computers, where we tell when the books close, these numbers.
Yeah, our reports as an industry for these engineered reports are not the actual accounting reports. These are just kind of budget.
That's my point.
Projection.
So we're going to be auditing to any extent. We don't need estimates. We need to know what to spend.
The city taxers should have that. That's a different document. So that's why I wasn't sure, because again, our firm doesn't actually do the annual administration for this, and I wasn't sure which document you were referring to.
There is a budget versus actual at the end of the year, and you can look at that at the end of every year. I'd suggest this, if you have some more concerns regarding that, we have the deputy city manager here. Let's meet privately after, and we'll get all your concerns evaluated, and you'll be happy to get back to them, correct?
Again,
terrific.
Thank you, Ron, for a nice answer.
And again, you do guys understand it. It's like a home budget or checking account that, I mean, you got bills coming in for various things going on, but you got to wait till the paycheck comes in, you know, and we get that paycheck every 6 months. I understand occasionally there's an oddball one that may drift in an odd spot. So you see that number jump around really unusually as the tax money comes in. But at the end of the day, after the year you've paid all your bills, that's all gone. There's really nothing left. There has not been money to carry over. We've had to get extra money kind of handed to us or borrowed and sent from the city to help cover our bills.
until the next 6-month bucket comes in.
Yeah.
The city's helped out on more than one occasion.
Because I do know somebody looked at it and goes, how come there's $500,000 in a balance? And because of that 6-month lag in the paycheck coming in, it is required that we keep 6 months, 7 months of a balance to carry us through those months until we finally get that check from the state that comes in and helps in the checking account.
So I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We need your help. Any good ideas you have?
Can I make a comment?
I'm sorry.
Before we say goodnight. Just like many of you, I'm very skeptical. Many of you know me, many of you know how critical I am of our city and the city management. I really have, or my hopes high, since we have a new city council and we have a new mayor. If we see what's going on around our city, we know that we can start having some hope. Although I'm not 100% sure, just like many of you aren't, that this is gonna work like a clock work. Nothing does, but we need to have involvement. Now, just like you, I wanted to see where is this gonna go and where is this gonna take us. This is why I get involved. This is why I'm always writing my name in commission, writing my name in volunteering. I would like to ask all of you, or as many of you as possible, there's a list in there. Please put your names in there. Talk to your neighbors. Help us understand. Even till today, and I've been dedicating the last 15 years of my life to try to understand the system, I don't understand it completely. Just like many of you, I don't like new taxes. I don't like to pay more. I don't want to give them any more money to continue mismanaging our money. Unfortunately, it is the way it works. But without involvement, we can change things. So all I can ask you is, please, if you are just as inquiry-minded as I am, get involved. Volunteer. Help us. Help us. Help us help us. Because this is how we're going to move forward. I think, like I said, I have a lot of faith on our new city council and our mayor. It seems like they're doing things right. New things are happening in the city. New things are happening at City Hall. I have my faith in there. Hopefully, if we just work close enough with them, things might get even better. So all I can ask you is please volunteer. Help us help ourselves.
One more question.
Sure.
If this doesn't pass, is there a waiting period to try to do this again? How soon can we?
No.
Yeah, legally, there's no requirement on that. It just is an expensive process.
So would you guys take this back and if it didn't pass and then try to come up with something new to try to pass the deal?
Well, our first responsibility is given our reality, how do somebody needs to start prioritizing things like the safety issues and the clearance and the fire hazards. So that's probably the first task that comes about. And then it's maybe a kind of a re-huddle. Okay, so how can we approach this? Is it maybe it was the wrong time to ask for an increase because so many people have been, let's face it, we've all been asked to pay more money for a lot of things. Maybe we need to do a better job of communicating, and maybe we can bring it back again. But I don't suspect what you would see is next year, let's do it again.
And I think that a new committee would get to the same conclusion. I mean, we looked at with Philip, probably 150 line items in a contract about what we'd want to see in landscape maintenance and trees. And they'll go back and go through this same process. I guess I could say, do you want to put cement where the grass is? I don't know what changes you.
But even that cost, because we've had a lot of you folks recommend, again, more water friendly mediums, and you've seen cities where they've done like artificial grass and some really nice rock features and things in the mediums. But what's not realized is what that cost. Sure, it cuts down on water, sure, it cuts down on having to mow it and all that, but the initial cost is like, okay, where are we going to get the money to redo that? Again, there's a lot of, like I said, just taking the tours to see all the different parts of the property throughout Phillips Ranch was just incredibly eye-opening.
240 acres, 12,000 trees. Yes.
My concern is there's about 15 households in this ranch.
Yeah.
And there's 3,300 households
Yes.
in the ranch.
Help us, we don't have any money. How do we get to the other 3,300?
Yeah, I mean, if they're not even here for this meeting, how are they going to be concerned enough to vote yes on this?
We agree totally, and that's what we're going to concentrate our efforts now on the campaign between now and the day the ballot goes out, to try to have very social media. We'll try to raise some money to do some flyers. You know, I think we're all willing to put a little bit of money in ourselves at this point to do some flyers.
Is there any way, instead of, somebody looking and, oh my gosh, that's jumping up $210, is there any way to have it where it just jumps up in incremental amounts over some years that
We
maybe
looked at
people
that.
will be more active?
We thought about that. That was, actually, that was my initial thing. 'Cause in 2008, when we had that ballot come up with this proposal to increase the rates, that was my initial thought, because we're in the depths of this recession. And like I said, I was angry at the seat, and I thought, they want us to step up and catch up for their mistake. Why can't we do it incrementally? And anyway, so I brought that to the committee, and ultimately the thought was, you know what, we could do that, but we have a lot of things that need to be fixed now. And if we're talking $17 a month, is it that much to ask to get to where we want to go? And so so we ended up tabling that and saying, let's just do it at once. Just do it all at once.
So assuming you did 50% this year and 50% 3 years from now, that means that we'd have to go out on a contract and get 50% of what we want, go out to bid with that, and it's still not going to look great for those years until we get the next part of that money, then go relet a contract to get what we're really looking for from the get-go.
I'm just thinking about all the rest of the households that aren't here too.
I agree.
Well,
We talked about it for hours and hours.
You and every politician who's run for office, anybody, it's, again, you call for these public meetings or a community meeting, and although I agree with you, I'm a little disappointed with the turnout today. But I tell you what, in other districts in Pomona, we've had council members come to a meeting like this and go, my gosh, how do you get so many people to your meetings? So we're welcome to any suggestions to help.
Question?
Yeah.
Is this going to cover the streets and the curb walls?
No.
Some of the streets have problems with the evening, and I'm talking the whole street needs to be done. So does this assessment cover that, or is that going to be something?
Not part of this group at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we share your concern.
This is great, just for green areas. That's
Yeah,
it.
we live here too, we know. So again, I want to thank everybody. I know I've talked to a few of you online. We've debated some of the issues. I've tried to answer, and Scott here is more of a financial guy and knows the numbers a little bit better than I do. We're going to continue to communicate that and try to get a yes vote. We need as much help as we can to get to the neighbors. I know when I get an opportunity to talk to a neighbor who at first says, no way, why would we do that? I usually, can talk them down from the ledge and they kind of go, oh, well, all right. I mean, I've been looking for houses for my daughter, and I look at like association fees, and I think, my gosh, what we're looking to pay for the full year is 1 month association fee of this place she wants to move to. I'm going to have to pay that. But
Look at the Mello-Roos fees on new homes.
Yeah.
Incredibly expensive, so.
Of course, it's not necessarily apples and oranges. There'll be people that point out.
So, I'm clear on this. Is there going to be some sort of flyer that we can take to the neighbors and to show them that this is what we have to go through, this is why it's going to cost this much, this is what will happen if we don't do it? Is there something like that?
I think the answer is yes, but there's one big next step, and that's March 18th. We need at least 4 city council members to say, yes, let's go forward with this.
Okay.
Once we do that, we're in campaign mode. So we're already talking about how we can do a flyer. George says we can use this indicia to try to send to all of the homeowners. all 3,300
So
homeowners.
the other council
Absolutely.
members get to vote on what Phillips Ranch does?
Yes.
Yes. Welcome to districts.
We're hoping for a unanimous vote.
Going along with that thought, is there going to be a presentation given to these council members as the presentation you gave to us so that they understand?
March 18th, we'll do a presentation to City Council. Adina will do a presentation to talk about the process, the expenses, and what would go on the ballot. And at that point, if the city says yes, we'll have between then and April, I forget the date, to get the word out, because the date goes down, the ballots drop. When you get it in the mail, if you haven't seen or heard about this, and I don't know how you could not, with everything Brian's done, you'll likely vote no. So we got a big task in front of us. We spent a year coming up with a recommendation, and now they're really hard work. I mentioned block campaigns. We're thinking about kind of organizing like you would for a campaign, like Mr. Lustro perhaps did. And there are reports that we can get that show high propensity voters, street by street, name by name. We'd love to go knock on all those doors and tell people how important this is with a flyer. That's our next step.
As a city council member, and I'm close to several of the city council members, I don't have so much a concern about what we're suggesting to be voted on, because there is an option to say do nothing. No. You know, there's an option to make one small little adjustment and carry on with the way it is. And then there's our proposal of the increase. So as a council member, I don't see any problem in giving you the opportunity to say yes or no. My concern goes to how much is that costing the city? How much is that costing us to put this ballot out there and go through this vote? So
$9,000?
Well, I guess, too, the city would have to probably answer this, but I believe it's district money for the ballot too. So
It
the
is.
council members aren't gonna be, that's not gonna be something that deters them as, oh, there's the city money going to Phillips Ranch, Phillips Ranch money going to Phillips Ranch, Phillips Ranch.
So perhaps our council member there is the person who has to help lobby for this. I think this really should be proposed as a choice to our residents. Yeah.
Question over there.
So let's just say that what happens and then we're moving forward to try to rally your fire in our neighborhood. Legally, can we put signs on our lawn,
It's interesting you say that.
leftover signage, maybe from campaigns, can we flip it over, make our own, bring attention to.
That will be nice.
Because, yeah, the recycled signs, I mean, at least people will start to ask, well, wait, what's that? What's going on? What's the question?
We're going to look into that. I think the answer is no, you can't put it on your personal property. I believe the former Public Works Director told us that we could put it on land that's part of the assessment district.
Not the other way around.
No,
It's the other way around. They can put on, yeah,
the other way around.
your own.
Okay, you can.
The other way around.
Okay.
Just like Ken, shake.
Yes, please.
Right.
How can we help you? I mean,
Thank you. That's a good beginning.
We're open to any good ideas. You have to organize people, organize neighborhoods. You can come meet with us when we're talking about how we're going to do this. We have open public meetings every other Tuesday, every other Tuesday evening at the admin. Our next meeting will be on the 19th, right after the vote on the 18th. And we're all about the campaign if it's a yes. So come join us.
I think talk to your neighbors is probably, and to your point, there's only a few of us in this room right now, but there's 3,300 people altogether. So one voice, one neighbor at a time is how I think we're going to try and get this word out. And we have a budget, so that's the best that we could do is just like we're doing right now.
Word of mouth.
Starting somewhere.
And I'll try to organize something online to where, again, it's a meeting in the park. It's a meeting somewhere around here of concerned residents that want to, help out and will listen to your ideas. If it is flyers need to be generated, which I think, I can do that. Again, we've taken on, like I've paid for the banners we put around to try to announce these meetings. that is just us, because I feel it's something that's very important for my community as well as my own, being a resident in my home. So I want to promote it. But if we have volunteers that want to, maybe come speak to a PTA, and raise their awareness. I mean, those are usually members of our community right here. And then they can, word of mouth, spread it out. I want to remind you that there was an initiative on the ballot to come into Pomona and put billboards up. That it was 3 weeks, or was it 8 weeks? Might have been 8 weeks, before that vote was going to come up and be voted on. And with no money and a social media barrage and grassroots level voice of the community brought the awareness that this was going on and defeated that ballot from somebody who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to get a yes vote for those billboards. So it's amazing what the power of the people can do when we get, when we can get the word out and people involved.
Yes.
If everything goes through, do you guys have, like, how you're gonna market the rewarding on the ballot, how it's going to be presented to the residents?
Adina?
So what's allowed to go on the notice and ballot is actually all outlined in the code. So the ballot language itself has to be completely impartial. It has to be yes or no, if this is the dollar amount of your assessment. And here's the formula of how to calculate it. It can't be any kind of promotional type material. You can't weigh pros and cons. It's just got to be, a very simple fact that here's how you would calculate your assessment, and so that you understand what you're voting on, and that kind of vote is done. So that piece isn't able to be the outreach piece.
So we're gonna have to do all the outreaches and the residents know the public costs of the ballot, so that we hopefully will vote yes when they get it.
Yeah. That's our job.
Yeah, public funds can't be used for that. It's kind of a
I guess we shouldn't have voted for Prop 218. I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Please get the word out. Attend our meeting. Thank you. Thank you.